Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by Good Marketing and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So landowners have a lot to consider, and the environmental condition of their property is a big one. There are more and more regulations and compliance requirements, and if you have an issue, you need to know who to call for help. Here to share the services provided by Hamp Mathews Associates are the principal engineer and visionary Joel Parker and office manager and integrator Holly Petroff. Welcome, Joel and Holly.
Thanks, Chris.
So visionary and integrator, I'm guessing we're an EOS company.
How'd you guess?
I've heard those words before. I've worked with and for a couple of these companies. So I'm already optimistic that you guys are probably pretty good at what you do if you're embracing that series. And you're doing it right, hopefully. So
yeah. We're trying.
So for those not familiar, tell us about Hamp Mathews Associates as a company. Like how and when was the company founded and maybe why?
Yeah. We were founded in 2002 and kind of born out of a parent company headquartered in Utah that just really didn't want to carry on with a Michigan business. And so at that point, the two founders, Lon Hamp and Alan Mathews, the namesakes.
There you go. Yeah.
It's one a scientist and one an engineer. They had a good thing going and said, hey, let's hang up a shingle here in Michigan. And it was really born out of a need for strong environmental advocacy for really one huge key client. And so almost a little boutique-y at that point. But since we've really grown a lot since then.
I can imagine. Sure. Yeah. And so for, what are the services that you provide now? Like what's the depth and breadth of the things that you do for your clients?
We are... For the most part, we'd like to say we're a full-service environmental consultancy. We offer a lot of science and engineering expertise. We're extremely nerdy scientists, really. We love to get in the weeds. To both private and public sector clients. And we do everything from kind of simple due diligence to strategically managing really hard, complex environmental damages sites and cases, sites where there could be litigation, sites where there's a lot of complexity. We also delve into litigation support and even expert witness work, depending on where we try to keep these cases from going that route, but if they go that route, we can step in and lend a hand there as well.
Got it. Okay. And obviously you're based here in Michigan. Do you serve throughout Michigan or do you have a restricted geography?
No. Yeah, we definitely serve throughout Michigan, particularly the lower peninsula. We haven't delved a ton in the UP yet, but we're headquartered in Bath. We have an office in Brighton with about 8 professionals that service, southeastern, eastern Michigan. And then we've got a few folks strategically located throughout the state, out of their homes. And we really service lower peninsula Michigan, a little bit in northern Indiana and northern Ohio. That's for boots on the ground. That's where we're getting our fingers dirty. We're in there doing the work. We also, as far as the types of clients we service the insurance sector quite a bit. So we work for some really large national insurance companies, very much strategically managing their environmental damages cases, and those tend to be all over the country. So we've got projects in California, New Jersey, New Hampshire, really wherever the need is, we can manage that from the desk for these insurance companies, and it's pretty cool, fun work.
Yeah, right on. Okay. So Michigan Reimagined, this podcast is really talking about, the vibrancy and economic sustainability and all the people that are working together to make Michigan competitive and on cutting edge. So, how does Hamp Mathews Associates kind of contribute to kind of things getting done, and highest and best use of land and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I like to say we make the world better.
So it was dirty, now it's clean.
Correct. And of course, in Michigan, with all the historic manufacturing, there's a lot of that. We make the world better. As I said, we work on some pretty bad sites. Some of them, big legacy manufacturers where they had decades and decades of pollution. We tend to posture those in a way that they could be transformed for reuse. Sometimes these sites, they're so contaminated that it's going to be a challenge. It's going to take decades. It took decades to get them where they're at. It's going to take decades to clean them up. But one of the things that we really do that we're very passionate about is we look for solutions that often involve solving the problem in place versus just picking up the contamination and moving it to another spot in the earth and just dumping it in the ground. So, for example, instead of digging it up and putting it in a landfill or pumping the water up and then just giving it to a wastewater treatment plant, we really try to focus on, is there a subtle and sometimes very nuanced solution that could be done in place that could, for one, from an economic standpoint, save just boatloads of money. And so those types of solutions, they're not brute force and they're a little slower, but they could tend to save the stakeholders a lot of money and still offer the same risk reduction.
Got it. Okay. So I was actually thinking about that. So I'm used to remediation being dig it out,
yellow iron,
burn it somewhere, or ship it to a place that's allowed to store it in perpetuity or whatever. And when I was learning more about your technique, I was wondering, A, I wasn't sure if it was going to be cheaper, and B, whether time, I hear the word time kills deals. So it's like if I dig it out and throw it away somewhere else and I get it done in 60 days versus your kind of grassroots, metaphorically and maybe literally trying to rehabilitate the land. That's going to take 5 years versus 90 days. Yeah, so not always. Sometimes, especially in a redevelopment deal, we have done some of this, we'll call it bioremediation or, just even some adding chemicals that would cause the contaminant to degrade very quickly. We've done some of that in a quick redevelopment situations. We did a couple projects in Traverse City right across from the bay where they just weren't in a situation where they could dig it all up, and we were able to do it quickly, but not always. You're right. It could take a lot of time. You have to look at the situation and say, well, do we have years here, or is this something that do we have to brute force the environment to match for a development that's happening in the next 18 months? Right. Yeah. And is a lot of your work around development, like the property is going to change its use, or is it existing people who want to stay that have identified something that they have to respond to?
Probably more the latter. We do get brought in on the former, but mostly by maybe another consulting firm who's really stuck on a nuanced problem. Okay. And that we're really good at helping when somebody gets stuck with a very nuanced problem because of what I'd like to say is we have excellent mousetrap skills. We'll come up with the best solution, but even better, we have excellent ability to communicate that mousetrap to all the stakeholders and get them comfortable with what the solution's going to be. And so, it kind of depends on the situation, really. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give a nod to our friends at Wagoner Financial. Whether you're just starting out, planning for retirement, or anywhere in between, Wagoner is here to help you make smart financial decisions. They offer comprehensive, customized planning from investment strategies and tax solutions to insurance, accounting, and estate planning. Wagoner is dedicated to supporting you, your family, your business, and your future. Using their unique team approach, their team's members' specializations ensure that you have someone who will have answers to your questions and is ready to help. Schedule a consultation by visiting wagoner-financial.com or give them a call at 517-853-3367. So you talked a little bit about the example up at Traverse. Mm-hmm. Like, give us some other, kind of just to help my
absolutely.
listeners understand what we're talking about here.
Yeah, a couple examples locally. We did a big project on Washington Ave, Kent Cleaners, and we did that for Eagle, for the state.
Yep.
That's one of our big clients, actually.
Okay.
We for the state, we work on a lot of orphan sites that no longer have a liable party.
Okay.
Yep. And this happened to be a big dry cleaner, which is one of our specialties, is those dry cleaning chemicals. And what was going on is that the vapors coming from that dry cleaner were threatening the perimeter neighborhood adjacent. So we came in, assessed that, mitigated any vapor intrusion coming to those homes. And then Eagle said, hey, this is such a gross and punitive source. We want you to try to remediate it. In fact, the first thing they wanted us to do was dig it out.
Okay.
And this was in if you know where Kent Cleaners, it's up on North Washington, and it was in a really tight neighborhood. And logistically, it was going to be very intrusive to the neighbors. And all of a sudden, economically, it was going to get over $5 million to dig and haul this contamination. And we said, time out. And we came up with another strategy where we could treat it in place, achieve the same risk reduction, and save the state about $2.5 million. And we did it pretty quickly over the course of about 45 days or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, the Holmes Brewing Smooge campus, what exactly is that down in Ann Arbor?
Yeah,
I was curious about that.
That was a 43,000 square foot brewery.
Okay.
They make a drink called Smooge. It's kind of like an alcoholic smoothie.
Okay.
Yeah. Summer
Holly's over there giggling.
summer drink.
Is that what's in that bottle you have over there?
So anyway, again, this was same types of chemicals as dry cleaners, volatilizing into the indoor air space. And again, Eagle, through a grant, hired a consultant. Then that consultant hired us to come in as kind of vapor intrusion specialists to design and build a vapor mitigation system for that building. And it was unique. One, there's like workers working all over, and they're working in some really pristine brewery conditions, food grade conditions. So it was really complex as far as the lengths we had to go to give them clean air to breathe.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times, you talk about Eagle and you talk about other partners and the consultants that then hire you. Talk about the ecosystem. Like, who are the other players that sometimes get involved in these types of projects?
Yeah. They range from, really small consultants. As far as environmental consultants, we work a lot with other consultants. These problems are really complex. They come at it from about 4 different sciences. Plus, the number one thing is the people science. What are the stakeholders like? And so, the people that get involved are other consultants, developers, business people, insurance people,
right,
state regulators. This job, it's science, but it's actually people science first. It's almost mediation and facilitation at times, or cat herding, just getting all these players to get on the same page with you. And generally, we all want the same thing, but it's just getting everyone at the table to realize we all want this to happen. How can we make this happen?
Right, right.
So my job and our jobs is really taking a bunch of really complex science, distilling it to a place where lay people and big decision makers can feel good about it. And
so really, you and this ecosystem of folks are out there are taking land that otherwise is kind of stuck.
Yep.
I mean, it's undevelopable.
Yep.
There's a problem. And some of it could be like, okay, it's vacant. There's really no action on this land, but now I've got a bloom that's headed towards a river or a neighborhood or whatever. So now we have safety concerns and we need someone to act on it.
Absolutely.
And so you get called in to help that. So, and in an industrial heavy state like Michigan, there's got to be a lot of parcels of land. So job security sounds like it's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. We're growing, and we're very passionate about what we do. We love it. I always start every Christmas party with how great is it that we're a bunch of nerdy scientists and we get paid to do science, and that's pretty awesome. We get to get paid to do what we love.
Right. Yeah. Now, Holly, I've known you for a little while. You're not a nerdy scientist.
I am not a nerdy scientist, Chris.
which is a good counterbalance. Let's talk about the company itself. So, you're obviously a reasonably significant employer, a small business, entrepreneur-led and evolving. And we tease a little on EOS, but you said you're in Bath. How many people do you employ, and what types of roles do the people that work for you have?
We've got currently 33 on staff. This has doubled since I started back in 2020, which everyone jokes that I brought COVID with me. So yeah, that's hilarious.
Well, you guys should be able to remediate that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was the hope anyway. And like you said, Chris, I did come on as a non-scientist to help. So there were a couple of administrative staff there, and everyone was kind of looking at me like, who is she? You know, what's she going to do?
Right.
And my main goal was to be a supportive team member and help these people, all of these nerdy scientists, do what they do best and clean up. And how can I be a supporting role in making process better and making policy and just having things move more efficiently for everybody within the firm? So that brought us to how can we be intentional? How can we be deliberate with these efforts here? And embarking on EOS as a structure was really kind of a no-brainer for us. And we were super excited to get started. It was just the three of us on the leadership team at the time, and it was tough, you know, in the beginning. We had to, everyone was just kind of used to putting their heads down and doing the work and going home. And we had to kind of look up. And I give the analogy of like the Titanic, you know, if you have nobody paying attention to where you're going, you might run into something that's going to be problematic. So let's try to figure that out ahead of time before it becomes an issue.
Can't fix every problem with an Erlenmeyer flask.
No,
right?
No,
I mean,
exactly. Exactly. So EOS as a structure, as a template, allows us to have clarity through a shared vision amongst the entire firm. And again, looking up to see where we're headed together. It gives us accountability through structure. It allows us to prevent as much as we can confusion, overlap, and redundancy amongst the teams. It allows us to create process and be as process-driven as we can. From onboarding, you know, in the very beginning when you're bringing people in, even the recruiting stage, to quarterly one-on-ones, it helps our teams to really know what to expect when they come into work every day. And this was absolutely crucial in opening the Brighton office. Having, you know, done that in about a 6-month time frame, you want to be very intentional. You want the people that are there to feel like they're part of the culture that you have here in Bath, you know, that we were having here, thanks to our visionary and just so many great staff that we have there. Traction through a consistent rhythm was really important. And we do this by having our level 10 meetings across all departments. In these meetings, we have firm-wide, everyone's got a scorecard metric. Everyone has quarterly rocks that they work on. And we even had a guy, it was great. I met with him a couple weeks ago, and he decided that he had some personal things he wanted to work on to be a better team member. And he said, can you help me create some scorecard metrics just for myself? I don't want to attach them to any meeting.
Okay.
And so I said, absolutely. So it's just the software is really helpful. Just getting people, and it's tough to get people into something that we leave these quarterly sessions with our implementer, because we do have an outside implementer that's helped us. And we'd leave those and we'd just be so excited. We'd come back and everyone would be looking at us like, and so we're like, okay, we got to pump the brakes a little bit. So that was definitely challenging. But really grabbing a hold of the culture that we wanted. You know, we established our core values. That's part of the EOS process too. And there's even people when we go through the recruiting, and I keep bringing up recruiting and people because that's the world that I live in here at Hamp Mathews. But I'll often ask, what made you choose us? And hands down, they're like, you guys are fun. This is a fun place to work. We came in for we do a few interviews and in the recruiting process, and everyone's just like, you guys are just so great. It just seems like a super fun place to work. Lots of great energy. Something that I also love about having an operating system. It doesn't, EOS is amazing, and I'm sure there's others, and I certainly, I know that there's others that work really well too. But it allows you to always be improving and paying attention with these little guardrails on. It reminds me of like a little kid bowling. You just have to kind of keep that in check. The softwares, the meetings, it allows us to see what we call the before, to kind of track your progress and see, if you are feeling in a slump. This is we've come so far, so to speak. We also are finding, and I know like the jargon and all of the things all of the terminology that you use in EOS, it's a talking point when we start first working with a lot of our clients, a lot of our partners that Joel has mentioned, whether they be environmental firms that are, different than us or vendors that we have. We work with a lot of other companies that also use EOS, and it just makes things easier because when we get into meetings, I will pull up pull up our software, and I don't want to have a meeting without that. So it's just like a no-brainer, and everybody's alongside, working alongside us. One other thing that I absolutely love, and I'm just going to give the final plug to EOS here, is the clarity breaks.
Okay.
It really allows us to intentionally look at not only our individual health, our team health, our organizational health, and how are we with our customers? What's the health of our client base and all of that? So it's really just about being intentional and deliberate in your success. If you're going to succeed, let's figure out why, because accidental success, there's nothing scarier.
It's hard to replicate.
No, I get it. And being successful on purpose is a hard thing for a company to learn how to do.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to thank my friends at Keller Williams. We all need a place to call home, and Chris Silker of Keller Williams Advantage and Team offers the expertise you're looking for. He's helped clients navigate the complicated world of real estate in mid-Michigan for over 10 years, providing the best information possible at the right time to empower the best decisions. Whether you're a first-time home buyer looking for a local expert to guide you from point A to point B, searching for an income property in the competitive Lansing market, right-sizing your life, or just searching for that dream home, Chris Silker and the Advantage and Team is a name to trust in Greater Lansing real estate. Visit advantageandteam.com or call Chris Silker directly at 517-242-9251 today to find the home of your dreams. So as you've had this rapid growth that you've been talking about, how do you find scientists? I mean, the geology, I'd be curious as to what specific disciplines you need, but I actually don't want to hear the answer to that because that's going to be hard for me to wrap my brain around. And I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as you find the people that are out there looking for jobs who have those skills. But where is your breeding grounds? Are these kids that are coming right out of college? Or are they people that are...
Both.
Yeah.
Definitely the composition the median age has shifted quite a bit in my 10 years here. So it's kids right out of college, kids from community college, people we know. Nothing better than known relationships, right?
Right, yeah.
But most importantly, what's I think evolved over the last 6 years or so is knowing our core values, knowing who we are, making sure there's really good alignment and having a process that we're going to go through. It's not just, oh, hey, Joel knows this guy and he's going to get a job here. That might have been how it was 8-9 years ago. And that might have worked out okay some of the time. But now it's kind of like, if I know somebody, I give them to Holly and some of the other folks, and I'm out of it at that point. And they take it. And
they got to be truly good.
Yeah. So that's it. Really having process. And just to kind of piggyback on what she said is just, it's, and I'm, if you knew me 9-10 years ago, I was the least, I hate rules. I am really out of the box. And so you might think I wouldn't like this structure. The truth is it gives me more freedom to be creative and innovate because I understand that there's process on all the parts of the playing field. It just helps me understand what everybody else is doing and knowing that I don't have to go over there and do what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, I think having been kind of close to the EOS system personally as well, I get that. On the one hand, you can initially go into EOS thinking that's going to be handcuffs for a visionary, where it actually maybe takes handcuffs off.
Absolutely.
You can trust the system's going to catch the things that need to be caught.
Yeah.
Then you don't need to occupy your own mind wondering what's being missed.
Absolutely.
That's great. So what else do my listeners need to know about Hamp Mathews that we haven't discussed yet? I mean, I feel like we ran through a bunch of good content for everyone to kind of hear.
Well, I mean, we have great culture, small company culture. That's huge to us. We are very process driven. A couple things I wouldn't hate touching on is, I said we work on some really complicated sites. Some of them are pretty nasty. Some of them get redeveloped. But we also, one thing we didn't touch on is that we've also gotten involved. We feel a sense of social calling, and like in Detroit, for example, they have they call it a rain tax. Okay, stormwater, a monthly stormwater drainage fee, and it's not insignificant. It's about $650 per month per impervious acre. And so if you're a small business owner in Detroit, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, you're paying $650 a month more, it really starts to cut into your margin.
Yeah, sure.
And what we did about 7 years ago, and of course, this is born out of that their infrastructure can't handle all this stormwater. So they've got to build new pipes and so on and so forth.
And this helps offset those costs.
Yeah. And so what we did about 7-8 years ago is we said, hey, we can build green infrastructure for you that'll help you not send all that water to pipes. It'll get it in the ground or get it up in plants like rain gardens and bioswales. And we helped people, small business owners, write grants and get the funding. And it was a ton of cat herding, but it was really important to us. Just, it wasn't some practice area that we knew we were going to make lots of money, but we felt it was really a great fit with our core values, and we went after it and did it, and we learned a ton and helped a lot of people get like a 80% credit on their water bill if they incorporate this green stormwater infrastructure. So that's something.
And it helps the city.
And it helps, I'm really proud
win-win.
of it, and we did it in some really cool places and spaces. So it was really just one of those organic things that just kind of blossomed up for us. And we're like, yeah, we could get behind this. We know how to control how water moves. That's what we do for our real job, And
right.
So that was that's something to know about us, is that we're pretty forward thinking, as far as like, okay, where is the world headed with climate change? And we look at the life cycle cost of the totality of what we do. Does using a bunch of yellow iron and hauling it across the state and dumping it in a landfill, what is the totality of that life cycle cost versus could we find a more subtle way that would just have a much less carbon footprint or intrusive footprint for the surrounding community?
Right on.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, I'm sorry. I'm kind of nerding out on you.
No,
I'm nerding out on you.
The story in Detroit is excellent. So was the city your client, or did they kind of connect you with a bunch of people that seemed to be motivated?
Actually, our clients were a couple of nonprofits that we got real close with and helped them. They had a couple of nonprofits had a few grants. One was called Detroit Future City, and another one is called Southwest Detroit Environmental Vision. And these two organizations, especially Southwest Detroit Environmental Vision, they're in Southwest Side, which we have done probably 10 projects in that community. We feel very strong about the rebirth of that community. We help them write grants to various agencies, get money for this green stormwater and the infrastructure, and then we helped go to churches, a pizza shop owner, these are small mom and pop businesses. We help them get that money to be a spark for them to get this this practice on their property, so that take 80% off their water bill.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great stories. I really appreciate you both being here to talk a little bit about the business model and the way you're going to sustain it by kind of folding Holly into the mix. And you've been there now, you said, for 5 years now, right?
Yeah, since 2020.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you're built on stable foundation now and ready to continue to scale. So just a proud small business here in mid-Michigan, growing like a weed, being a great employer.
We have great benefits, by the way.
Fantastic. Great to know. Thanks to you, I would imagine.
Yes.
You went out and hunted that down. So we've been speaking with the principal engineer and visionary Joel Parker and office manager and integrator Holly Petroff from the Hamp Mathews Associates out of Bath, Michigan. Thanks so much for sharing your story with us here today.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely my pleasure. And I want to give a final shout out to all the loyal sponsors. We've got Wagoner Financial, Good Marketing, Triterra Environmental, Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Michigan Rise, and the Kirk Byron State Farm Insurance Agency, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. All fantastic people who are worth the call. And if you found the show as a one-off, I want to remind you to follow and subscribe to Michigan Reimagined on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, pretty much anywhere you would find your podcasts. This is Chris Buck signing off for Michigan Reimagined.